as a kid. I hated that, but just the environment I grew up in, it was like, you're going to get picked on. I've actually had people like take out my earrings and grab my backpack like you were going to fight. And it's like, okay, I guess I have to do this. And it became a natural instinct after getting used to it for so long.
You face battles most never fought, pain, struggle, adversity. But here, we use that as fuel. This is the Battle Harder podcast, where we motivate, educate, and inspire warriors of life, veterans, survivors, leaders. We share stories and strategies to turn pain into progress. Here's your host, Coach Rob. Let's lock in and battle harder.
What's up, everybody? This is your host, Coach Rob, here at the Battle Harder podcast, where I hope to motivate, educate, and inspire you to become the best version of yourself. This is going to be a raw and thought-provoking episode on the Battle Harder podcast as I sit down with a guest whose transformation journey, it defies convention. Once operating as an escort, she now teaches other people how to decode emotional pain, reclaim self-awareness, and rewrite the inner narrative that keeps people stuck. This is going to be an episode about survival, emotional pain, and rebuilding her life one day at a time. I'd like to welcome to the show, Yasmina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here, and I can't see you on camera.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. What happened? I can see me, but you still
There you
can't.
go.
Okay.
There we go. Welcome to the show, Yasmina. Thank you for being here. Technical difficulties are always a thing, and that's fine. Before we get started, just give us a little bit of an introduction about who you are and what you currently do.
Oh, I am a person that came through, I feel like, so much pain. I'm surprised I survived it. As far as what I do now, I am working to educate people on how I got through the pain. It was more than just therapy. It was, I studied myself on a level that was definitely scientific, and I want to bring awareness. I actually want to start a movement, Stop Hurting the Children. Once I had so many people inbox me, I was like, we're all in pain. So that's what I want to bring awareness to, of why we're feeling that.
I love that, and it seems like these days almost everybody deals with some sort of trauma, and it doesn't matter how small or how big our trauma is because it all affects us differently, but the key is to finding coaches like me and people like you that have different theories on how to overcome that, and then finding the right fit and being able to use these tools to be better. And like I say to everybody, and maybe you can touch on this a little bit, my trauma didn't go away. It's still there, and I still have bad days, but I stack more good days than bad, and I think that's the key to having a peaceful and successful life.
Yeah, that is a huge thing. It's like it's not going away. And I feel like that's what can bring frustration. Like, how am I doing all these different things, but it's still there? It's like, what is the problem here? And yes, I do feel like you'll have more good and bad, but it's taught to us since we were children. You are going to feel pain from the world, and that's just the way it is. And I'm working on challenging that because I'm like, why does that have to be the way it is? Why do I? And I remember when I had spoke with you and other people, it's very casually said like, hey, if it wasn't for what I went through, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I struggled with that because when I felt that pain from that relationship, yes, I figured out so many things and it's so great and I'm gonna help other people. And I kept trying to tell myself, well, I'm glad I felt that pain. I'm like, I'm not glad that I felt that. I'm not happy. I would have been very happy being in a healthy relationship. So it's more so I would have loved to know who I was if I didn't experience all that pain. But here I am now. And I'm not going to let it make me veer off to not being happy. But it would have been nice to meet that person that didn't feel all that pain.
I like that, and you know, I can agree with that to a point. I mean, I've been through a huge amount of struggle in my life. It seems like I'm always fighting for everything I want, everything I believe in, everything I love. But I know for me in my heart that, you know, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever, like I really truly feel my struggle is to allow me to communicate effectively with my community and help them grow. And I truly believe that I wouldn't be Coach Rob if I didn't go through struggle. And what that helped me do is essentially turn my struggle into a superpower, right? So instead of saying, oh man, this sucks, or I've really learned to put my energy into the things that matter. So like if I go to a doctor appointment and the people are rude, I don't let it bug me. If someone cuts me off, I don't let it bug me. If it doesn't affect my life in a serious matter, it doesn't matter. And I think giving people those tools to deal with that is very important. So let's talk a little bit about kind of your beginning, like how was your family life and kind of what led. Give me a couple steps on into your story and who you are, because I think that's very important.
Oh, I feel like my family life was, I mean, just thinking about it makes me rub my head. It was, I thought it was normal. I thought it was normal. And it wasn't until I got into therapy where they were looking at me. Because the first therapist, she helped me realize like, hey, it does happen and so forth, but let's not normalize it to our kids. And it was when I actually seen the opposite shell, who was a white woman, and that was not familiar, I would say, with my culture. And when I was talking to her, I just remember her eyes were bugged and she was rubbing her head. And I'm just laughing like, yeah, so this happened. And she was like, that's literally the reason you're an escort. And she was like, and I'm not trying to say something's wrong with you. But she was like, those things had a huge effect on you. My mother's responses, I feel like, were always unconscious. People asked me, like, was your mom on drugs? I said, no. They said, did she drink? I'm like, no, she didn't even like smoke a cigarette. I said, maybe she should have. I don't know. But it was very, oh my God, it was like, I don't know if people seen that movie, Antoine Fisher. It was worse than that. It was.
At what age did you, like, can you give us a little in depth, like at what age did you become an escort, and like originally, like what was your reasoning for this that you justified like this was okay?
I was 21 and I had a son.
Oh wow.
And the person I got pregnant by was like, no, you need to get an abortion. And I was like, this is familiar. I remember my family told me I had to get an abortion and I didn't have a choice. And I was like, no, I accepted like, hey, this happened and I'm not just going to get an abortion, act like it didn't. And at first I was working a job and it was going good. And then I lost my job and then I lost my place. And I was like, oh, okay, I finally got another place, like look for another job. And I ran across this ad, escort agency. And I was like, they always say no black women, but this post didn't say that. So I said, maybe I'll get a chance. And I just was thinking, I have to make enough money to get my child out of this environment because I could work all these jobs, but my mom worked all these jobs, never had enough energy for us. I was thinking, I don't want to cling to a man to help me pay for something because I saw that with my mother and it never still seemed like it was enough. And then school, oh, please, I didn't have enough. I don't know what it is. I didn't believe in myself enough. It wasn't something in my family that was talked about that you can go to school and become a better person. So it was just about surviving. And I was not going to allow my son to grow up and feel like I got to take care of mom.
Man, that's powerful. And that's, one of those things that I guess that's a testament to who you are, because you really went deep into like a negative profession all in order to take care of your son. Everyone told you to abort your son. You're like, no, I'm going to raise my son. How old is your son now?
He's 13.
Oh, wow. My son's 13 too. And I take it you have a really good relationship with him?
Yeah, it was definitely something I had to earn. I did start realizing, yeah, I have 3 children, but my son is a huge reason in me working on bettering myself.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think, that speaks volumes to your character and personality. We have to sometimes put our own emotions aside. And I talked about this on my Father's Day episode, that when you have kids and you have that responsibility is bigger than yourself. And I'm very tired of fathers not being there for their kids, whether it's, the baby mama made them live through hell and they said, I can't deal with this, or if it's they didn't want the child, or for whatever reason. That's not an excuse. And we're finding in society that the more kids that don't have a father in their life, they have a harder time growing up and dealing with things and doing things. They need that, even if not a father, a male role model to show, you have to be able to, a man has to be able to show a man, a boy, a child, how to act, just like daughters need their mothers. It's always better to have both parents, but a lot of times that doesn't happen. So, for anybody listening to this, if you are a father, but you're not accepting your role, change your mindset, lean into that, because everything that you don't give that kid is going to hurt that child, and everything you give that kid is going to benefit that child. It's just the way it is. Man, that is crazy that you went through this. Do you see or feel that women in general, or black women, Hispanic women, other than white women, are there a lot of other ethnicities in escorting services just trying to make a buck?
I think that they're trying to feel valued. They're trying to feel good, because when I was in that industry, I would be very surprised when I'd see women that didn't have kids. I'm like, why are you here? Like, you don't even have any kids. And I feel like it was an unconscious response to them feeling like I'm valued, and somebody's telling me I'm beautiful, somebody's telling me I'm great and I'm fantastic. And I feel like where it turns negative is because somebody's telling you you are lower than this. Like with the porn industry, I feel such sympathy for those people, because they feel like I'll never be valued, I'll never be good enough. And if that's said to you enough, that's probably why they do drug and rob. It's definitely not an excuse, and it's actually disgusting when I do see behavior like that, or when I do see people say, I'm going to take this man because of money. It's like, you need to look within, because you're about to go destroy a whole family for money.
Yeah.
You don't believe you can ever get any?
I like that, and I like how I feel like you're on this mission to not just empower everybody, but really empower women and speak to women. And I think we definitely need more role models and leaders in society to help all groups of people in all walks of life. And I can definitely see how someone in an escort that maybe they didn't get their father's love, or they didn't feel worth, the whole self-worth, self-love, self-worth is so important. Like, you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else. And, my wife used to say that to me, and I used to get pissed off at her, and I'm like, why are you telling me this? No, you love me. And when she finally explained it to me, and as I speak to people like you that went through some very traumatic stuff, and they decided, like, no, I need to love myself and take care of myself, the light bulb popped on. I'm like, oh, okay, I understand what you're saying to this. And it caused me to look deep down in myself and love myself as well. So after, how long did you do escorting, and like, what was the next step after that, or what happened that led you to get out of that profession?
I'm going to go into, I'd like to touch on white women.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's very important for me to touch on it, because I actually had made a post where I always hear Black women did this and minorities did this for all these other cultures. And so I had made a post. It's actually going viral. It's gotten over 200,000 views, and I was really shocked. I said, I'll be the first to say, hey, this is what I learned from white women. And I said, before you guys get upset, I was like, I did. They're in such self-control of their emotions. And, what do you guys have to say? Oh, my goodness. The thread, white women were like, thank you so much. Yes, and then I noticed it started getting darker. And they started saying, no, I had this happen to me. And I had this. And I had people inboxing me. They're still inboxing me. And I was like, what the? I never knew white women went through, so many things like this. Because it's always taught they don't go through nothing.
Right. And I think that's the problem is, as I know statistically that Black men have a higher rate of suicide. But just like you said, all women, all men, all people, we all go through shit, and it's not easy and it's hard. And I think a lot of times, even with my culture, we're just better to push it down and not say anything and try to move on. And, even in my own relationship with my parents, my father emotionally abused the shit out of my mother. Luckily there was no violence, but abuse is abuse. And, after she passed, he changed a little bit, but not much. But he was just one of those men that you didn't really deal with anything. You kept it bottled up inside. And when he couldn't talk about it because he didn't think, he was good enough or man enough to speak about it, he would yell at my mom or throw his hand through a wall or throw something and break it. Like, And I found that in my own life, that because I adopted that, because, you know, we learned from our parents, like you said, and I had a huge, after I got out of the military, I had a huge anger problem, and I started doing the same thing. And then I was looking at my kids and like, why am I yelling for no reason? And that led to the divorce of my first marriage after 18 years. As I always tell everybody, it takes two to tango. There was a lot of things my wife didn't give me, but I will take the bigger responsibility, 60% my fault, just for my emotional behavior. And I had to leave that relationship to heal. And, you know, I think it's important, not from a, I don't know, scandalous perspective. I think it's important to make thought-provoking posts to get people to think. And I think that was very brave of you, because, you know, I hate like racism. I hate my kids. I have 3 kids. They're mixed. 3 of my kids are half Jamaican, half white. And I always let them choose if they want to lean into the white side or the black side. I don't care, because they're my kids and I love them to death. But at the same time, as a father and a man, I have to talk to them about how to deal with law enforcement, how to be in society, because in society, they're going to always see them as black. They're not going to see them as white. And so they have a much harder battle to overcome adversity. And I try to tell them to lean into that and have that be your superpower, because the color of your skin is not a reason to be judged in society. It's the content of your character. It's how you carry yourself. It's your integrity. It's your value system. And I wish more men, regardless of race, would instill these values into their children so they can lead with purpose and not feel upset because they're too black for white kids and too white for black kids. Like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
So
they should be able to lean into either side. They should be able to say, I'm hanging out with white people, I'll acknowledge my white side. I'm hanging out with black people, I'll acknowledge my black side. Because with my daughter, I said, she's white and black. And somebody said she's black. I said, let me tell you something. I just told you she's white and black. So I'm going to stop that, because it creates a psychological problem that I guess people are not willing to acknowledge. It does create a psychological problem when somebody looks in the mirror and has to say, I'm just black. No, you were biracial.
And I've seen statistically that in society, most kids these days, most people they're mixed with something. There's not, you know, there's not a big number of 100% African Americans or 100% white guys or 100% Hispanics. We're really a mixed race. So I don't understand why we can't just be people instead of the color of our skin, you know. It's a very frustrating thing, and it's very frustrating for me, because if I say I'm proud of my heritage, I'm a racist for being white. And it's like, why can't I be proud of being Irish or German or whatever I am? And at the same time, my kids can be proud of those nationalities, but be proud of being Jamaican as well. Like, I just don't understand in 2025 why we're still doing this.
I feel like where I'm at, with me, I will say personally, I'm proud to be black. What does that mean? Is what I think to myself. Because if I say, hey, I'm proud of this, there might be a black person that comes out and says, I don't align with what you said. What? Why do I have to align with what you think? So I will say, with me, it's like, am I going to be proud of the impact I am leaving in this world? Is where I'm going with it. Because with the category, it's when you're confined to something, they're like, you have to speak this way, you have to talk this way. And I think everybody is walking around saying, you're not going to tell me how to talk or how to think, you know? And so I feel like, so I'm sorry to get off topic here with that. I just wanted to mention that because I heard you say white women, and I've had so many inbox me like, thank you for, I mean, gosh, they're telling me so many things in their childhood where I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, oh, I think this is a therapist, and I had a friend tell me like, you better get used to it because they are going to start telling you what they went through. And I was like, okay. So I just wanted to say that because it would have been so wrong of me to know I'm getting all these inboxes and I made that post and I didn't speak up and say something, you know?
No, you're fine. And we can even maybe do another conversation a whole other time about race. And just like I said, I'm just so tired of being in 2025 and there's still these issues that it's not needed. Like we all, if a a black man wants to talk proper and educated, he shouldn't be called that, oh, you're an Uncle Tom or you're talking like a white guy. And at the same time, if a white guy is talking in slang terms or whatever because he grew up maybe in the inner city, he shouldn't be called a wigger. Like, your personality is your personality. It's who you are and how you adopt it. And if you don't like it, then you just don't have to talk to the person. But it shouldn't bother you to the point where we still have these different racial connotations and stigmas. It's another stigma I guess I'm just trying to break with the mental health stigma, is that we all have issues. We all have problems. We all have hurt, pain, love, anger. Like, we all feel the same things. If you get cut, you bleed red. If I get cut, I bleed red. Like, there's no excuse to see something based on color, or not hire based on color, or not hire based on ethnicity. It's all should be based on the content of your character and how you present yourself to society. Like, that's just the way it is.
I agree. And, and what nobody's stopping and doing is saying, why do I think that? Why do I believe that? With me, I remember I started talking in a high-pitched tone, and my cousin was like, why are you talking like a white person? And I was like, I don't know. All of a sudden, I just started, and then I realized, because I'm having anxiety, and I'm trying to manage my emotions, and I guess the body feels like a high-pitched tone is going to help you manage your emotions. And I didn't realize that about myself, but I had to study, why am I having that response, instead of just somebody categorizing me to, you're talking like a white person. No, why did that all of a sudden change and I started talking like that? And it's a high pitched tone to help with anxiety. I think, and that's the problem, is people are not studying, why am I having this response? And biochemistry absolutely helped me understand, oh, this is why I'm responding and thinking and acting like this. And I tell people all the time, I said, when I was an escort, I had dealt with a lot of white men that were telling me, why are you doing this? And I was thinking, like, what the hell is happening here? And they're like, why don't you try this? Or why don't you? And I never had nobody have those type of conversations with me.
Wow.
And they invoked thought in me. And I remember some black guy I was dealing with, he had told me, like, they're just saying that because I was like, I'm not polluting my mind with that. That's whatever happened to you. That's why you believe it. I felt like it was helpful to me and it made me feel value. Granted, I'm sure a white woman could say, hey, a black man made me feel value. Granted, a Chinese person could say, every race, round and round or corner to corner we go.
Right.
And you have to understand, why are you having this response? And people keep looking at the shell, like, this shell is making me have this response. This religion is making me have this response. Let's dive deeper into biochemistry, is where my brain went.
And I like that, because it seems like when I speak to people that overcome trauma, it's like a 50-50 of people that either try to go deeper in the science or they just go from like a more emotional perspective. And I even had a neuroscientist on my show talking about our subconscious mindset and how what we speak out into, the universe hits our mind and makes us feel a certain way. And that goes with if you say, I'm not loved, no one likes me, I'm ugly, you're going to feel those things. You're going to think those things. But at the same time, if you're like, I'm beautiful, I'm loved, I'm smart, it really changes your perspective and works. And, as someone that was very negative and very dark and very black, it took me a long time to get to the positive side. But once I did that, I was such a better mental space and mind space. So after the escort, what happened next? Like, what was after that?
After that, I felt like I had felt value. I was hanging around actually a Russian lady, and it was funny because I drank all the time. Oh my God, as soon as I woke up, I was drinking.
Oh, wow.
And I felt like it was helping me think better. And I remember my mother was like, you're an alcoholic. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And then one day she said something that struck me. She said, you're right. You're not an alcoholic. You're a functional alcoholic. And when I looked that up, I said, oh, I can relate to this. And with the mindset, I remember I kept hearing that book, The Secret. And I was like, oh, another secret. I don't want to read this. Like, I was just like, I'm done with you guys telling me. And so I actually had a friend gift it to me on my birthday. And I rolled my eyes, but I said, all right, she gifted it to me and let me read it. I didn't even read the whole book before I realized, like, it is my thought process that's keeping me confined to these experiences because I'm scared. And I actually had a white man tell me, he said, you know what I think? I think that you'd like to hang around different type of people, but you're scared they're not going to accept you. And I was like, and I just got kind of quiet, like, man, I think he's got a point here. And I was like, why am I thinking that? So that book really helped me. And my Russian friend, she definitely did a psychological hack. She was like, I'm gonna give you this vitamin. Just resist drinking for a week, and you're not gonna want to drink anymore. I didn't drink for like a year and a half. It was just a regular
Wow.
vitamin. And I lost a lot of weight after having cosmetic surgery. I gained more weight after the cosmetic surgery because I just felt like it was going to be a simple pill. And I said, okay, I'm ready to find a husband. I'm ready now because I'd never wanted to get in a relationship because I always would try him for 3 months and I noticed my behavior. I was angry, confused, and I was like, I got to get away from it because I need to
Mm.
figure out who I am. Because I noticed when I got in a relationship, they kept telling me how to be, and I felt like, should I be that way? But what pulled me out is I cannot tell my children to follow something I'm unsure of. I probably should do some more. I didn't know at the time because I didn't know mental health and stuff, but I just went with the feeling. That's where I feel like that's where your connection is to whatever you call the source. It and the spirit told me its name is all because I asked one day. But anyways, I had dated this man and he was saying he wanted arrangement, and I was like, I've never been good with those because they're always trying to make me talk a certain way, or I don't know what's happening. I don't want an arrangement. It didn't seem okay to me. It seemed like a lot of games, and I was like, I'm not going to play these games. And I remember somebody told me, well, then you're going to have to be with a lot of men. I was like, well, I don't know. I just know I'm not going to deal with one that's telling me I have to think this way or be this way. It's going to make me angry because I knew I had an anger response. Like I didn't always want to get too physical, but if we had to, so be it. But I never was like that as a kid. I hated that. But just the environment I grew up in, it was like, you're gonna get picked on. I've actually had people like take out my earrings and grab my backpack like you were going to fight.
Oh
And it's
wow.
like, okay, I guess I have to do this. And it became a natural instinct after getting used to it for so long.
So like that's very powerful because it seems like between doing the escort, having a son, you were going through a lot of different emotions, different pains, different things, and you're doing essentially you're being in like a one-off relationship with being an escort, meeting all these different men who are all telling you different things, and then you're trying to find love and once again different men, different thought processes, and every time you're angry, frustrated, upset, sad because you essentially didn't love yourself is what I think I'm hearing. You didn't really have
Hmm.
that self-worth. And unfortunately it's not your fault obviously, but as part of your upbringing and what you saw and going into survival mode for your son. So what was the epiphany or what happened? What led you to like completely stop all this and change your mindset and get to where you're at right now?
The man I fell in love with was going around telling people he was in a domestic violence relationship.
With you?
And yes, with me.
Oh wow.
And I was like, what? That blew my mind. I was like, and I pictured my dad, who's from Africa. I was like, I could never hear him formulate the words, I was in a domestic violence relationship. And I was just like, why does he keep saying that? I mean, I would yell, get in his face, I don't care, poke at his forehead. Like, I was like, women do that. Like, that's domestic violence. And I felt like, no, you're using that as an excuse because you just got me pregnant and moved me into this house and then you ran away.
Oh
And then
wow.
you formulated a relationship with somebody very close to me to the point where you got the finances involved. And it was just like, no. But I really stay connected to my spirit. And it actually took a friend of mine that I grew up with to say, well, Yasmina, was it domestic violence? And I was like, how are you even going to ask me that question? That sounds dumb. And she said, well, this is the thing. The way we grew up, we didn't feel like it was violence till we saw blood.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, that threw me back. I was like, huh? And it made me think of my childhood. Are you bleeding? All right, you're fine.
Wow.
If you're not bleeding, you're fine. And I said, damn, that is always said in childhood. Like, if you're not bleeding, you're fine. I mean, you could literally have your appendix about to burst and they're like, go lay down. Like, until
Yeah,
I see blood or damage, you're fine.
that once again shows like how we're brought up by our parents. And once again, fellas, if you are a father and you have kids, take care of your kids because it's just a horrible thing not to be and mothers too, like be present in your kids' lives, help them grow, help them thrive. You can decide, like I had to decide when I had my daughter, she's 25 now, when I first had my daughter, And I remember yelling and screaming at my ex-wife, and she's looking at me like I'm a monster. And that really threw me back. I had to be like, wow, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't be this big angry guy. And I, came from a home, like I said, my dad was a pretty tough man, but I would say I had at least I thought I grew up upper middle class. At the long term, I realized my dad was just spending money carelessly to make us happy, which wasn't the right answer. But he never said, I love you. He didn't tuck me in at night. He didn't give me hugs. Like, he did support me by coaching sports teams that I was on. He did support me by going to different track meets and games I did and trying to inspire me to be a top tier athlete and playing basketball with me. So he did show me love in other ways, but the internal love and affection wasn't there. So that when my daughter was born, I had to be like, no, I'm going to tell my kids I love them. I'm going to tuck them in at night. I'm going to make sure they have everything they need. And even now, to this day, if my daughter or son needs me and they call me, it doesn't matter what time of the night, I will pick up the phone and I'll say, how can I help you? What's going on? And I will guide them the best I can, devoid of my father's advice, because I had to change my mindset and change my roles. And so it seems like, at what point, like, did you, because I don't really think, I guess it could have been a form of domestic violence. It seems more like emotional abuse to me. Either way, it was wrong, and I don't think it was your fault. It just, once again, upbringing, how you felt, self-worth, self-love. So what happened next? Like, what changed?
What changed is I still had to raise a child with him. And I could not raise my child to love something I hated. That was not going to happen. And I remember my therapist said, find compassion for him. And I was like, compassion? But I said, I have to study what happened. I cannot act like everything is fine. Why did this happen? And when I looked up betrayal trauma, I heard it said 4 or 5 years to heal. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I was like, how do I raise them? And what I came to realize is he was looking for nurturing. And I remember my mother was like, just let him think he's right. I was like, I'm not playing that game. That's actually going to hurt him if I let him believe he's correct and he's not. And it was like, just get what you need. I was like, then I'm playing him to get money. I believe in that I can do this. So it was just like, no. And I felt like my spirit kept leading me to Eric. Like, I went on a date. The guy's name was Eric. I'm like, I had to watch a movie, Eric. I'm like, okay, there's something I need to study here. And I had learned a lot about his childhood upbringing. And it was like, what I kept realizing is the mother is failing hugely. And I don't know why that's not being addressed. And that's what I had to realize, that man is supposed to do this, man is supposed to do that. And I didn't realize I was never brought up to balance the man. I was just brought up, he should provide. So, and he was brought up, he should just provide. But then we kept finding ourselves in this, and I'm sure he was like, why am I feeling like this? And I'm like, why am I feeling like this? And it was because he was looking for nurturing. But I don't think it was never taught when I was growing up, make sure you nurture him. I never heard that. I don't think he ever heard, make sure you get nurtured. It was, make sure you provide. And it helped me understand why the sex industry makes so much money, because that is who is nurturing the men.
Wow, that's very powerful. And what I'm hearing is exactly how I currently run my current marriage. So I've been married to my wife now for a year. It will be our 1 year anniversary in a couple of days, but I've been with her for 8 years. And I realized something amazing that I figured out. When I was with my first marriage, I did all the cooking, I did all the cleaning, I took the kids to school. Essentially, my wife, she would come home and she would go upstairs and just watch TV. I would find myself spending more time with my kids, being less intimate with my current wife, and my yelling and screaming, once again, was my low self-worth, but I wasn't getting the nurturing that I needed from her. So when I got in this new relationship and I was like, man, I love this woman and I need to change, my wife and I, we literally just give all of ourselves to each other, not expecting anything in return. And when we do that, we end up literally complimenting each other on everything. We end up working on everything 50-50. I still protect her. I still provide for her. I still preside over her. And I give her that leadership that she needs. But she gives me the love, the affection, Like, we're so in tune that most of the time it's crazy to think that we'll sigh at the same time. We'll say the same things. We'll point at the same things on TV. Like, we're so connected to the point that, like, it almost seems like magic or fairy tale or whatever. But it's not. It's because, one, I decided to heal from my trauma and not yell, not scream, because I love her. And that's what I needed to provide for her. And then she just loves on me all the time. Like, we're always cuddling, always holding hands. Like, she wants to hold my hand to walk out the door 2 feet to the car. And, you know, that's, a lot of men don't have that. A lot of men, they're just expected to do what they have to do to keep the house going. And that causes trauma and emotion and pain as well. So I really like that. Is, if you don't mind me asking, is your ex, is he still in your son's picture?
Yes, I actually have 3 children's father. I can't believe it. I remember my daughter was like, "You have more kids. If you get another man, Mom, I don't think that's a good look." And I was like, this shit wasn't planned. Like, you know, every time I met someone, I'm like, this is it. This is the one. And I did not plan that, you know, but my daughter said that to me when she was 9. And I'm like, who you been talking to? But yeah, but so I say that, and I have to openly say that because there is 3 children's father. The one that brought me to an awakening, yes, he is still involved. He lives 4 minutes around the corner. He moved around the corner, and he didn't get nurturing growing up. And his way of wanting nurturing was very unhealthy. It had equated to specific intimate desires that I felt as though, okay, maybe it's just having fun. But then I started noticing, hold on, something's unhealthy here, and we need to talk about it. Granted, he's very much older than me. So it was like, we don't need to talk about anything. This is what I've always done that works for me. And I started studying him and studying myself. And I was like, this is why he's responding this way. Plus, it's very important to mention he was a veteran. And I had to dive. So I had to dive into studying veterans as well, because that was a part of his life. And I was just like, I just kept rubbing my head like, this is deep. This is deep, because that's how much I loved him, that I studied him. And love is conditioned. They got to stop with the marriage vows. Let's just stop lying. It says to love unconditionally. And then when you start loving unconditionally, they're like, you got a mental problem. I thought you said to love unconditionally. I thought you were supposed to study the person when times get hard. Why are they reacting like this? No, because you turn on TV or you talk to somebody and they say, this is how they should behave. Then I made a post and I said black men need to learn how to tame black women. When I said that, I did not know people were going to get upset. Wow. And I was thinking, like, when I heard tame, it sounded correct to me in the moment. And then people saying, like, we're not animals. Are you guys admitting you're animals? And then I started researching, why did I say that? Because it came from somewhere. I don't just shut down easily. There's been plenty of things to help me shut down easily. I'm not doing that no more. I need to study, why am I having that response? And then I ran across, we're mammals. I said, well, no wonder I said that. We are mammals. The grocery store is about keeping us fed. And people don't even realize they are taming one another. Like, you are taming one another. I don't equate taming to hitting. You know, there's plenty of things down here trying to tell you how to tame somebody. Listen to them, talk to them, pat their back, rock them, hug them, have sex with them at this hour. They're trying to tell you how to interact with one another. But granted, I left the post up. I said, that's fine. I only had 1 minute to say that. They'll refer back to something so I can further elaborate on it. But basically, I probably should have said black men need to learn how to nurture one another. But it's not just black men. All of this, and they're going to be mad when I say this, because I'm going to make sure I continue to say it, it all falls on women. You're supposed to be the balance between man and child. And yes, it's a lot of weight, because we have drugs in our brain. So it's like, you got to balance the drugs in your brain, balance the drugs in the children's brain, balance your husband's brain. Like, whoa, That'll create yelling and screaming, and I hate you. And a man's like, okay, let me go buy her this. Is she happy now? And it's like that works for a minute. Then all of a sudden, the biochemistry starts going up, and you're like, what's wrong with this crazy person? The drugs aren't balancing in their brain. Similar to, I guess they could say, a crackhead or somebody on opioids or whatever. It's a huge drug imbalance in the brain, and they say the brain runs on 90% autopilot. I said, no wonder you have all this destruction down here. Who's conscious?
And, I'll agree with some things. I think at the end of the day, regardless, I think it's up to both. And if you're in a loving relationship or a caring relationship, it's up to both individuals. Like, at the end of the day, if I didn't take responsibility for my actions, my wife can't help me. And I say this a lot on the podcast I do with my ex-wife. She would say, I don't know how to help you. With my current wife, she always says, how can I help you? And just that change in verbiage is huge, right? Because if I'm in an argument with my wife and she's like, I don't know how to help you, but if I'm arguing with my wife, she says, babe, how can I help you? Like, and so to my community, I'm going to give a little preface to this. So please don't threaten me or shut me down. I 100% agree with you with the tame, because my wife, even joking, there's some serious to this. She'll show me a post of a lion being serious, walking down the street, and then her with her bubbly personality. And I'm an introvert, and I always have like a mean look on my face, and I carry myself a certain way. And my wife calls me beast for a reason, but she can tame the beast. Taming's not about, like you said, it's not about whipping, putting someone in a cage, taking away resources. No, it's helping them deal with that inside anger, that internal anguish, that pain inside, and feeling a way to bring it out where that person can relax and be comfortable and feel comfortable in their skin and feel worth and feel love and be open with your partner. So I think people need to I really like how it seems like when you have a deep thought or a dark thought or a mindset shift, you don't just take it for what it's worth. You have very good emotional intelligence to actually say that you study what's going on. So I commend you for that, because I think a lot of people and a lot of women in general, they don't do that. Like being able to just pause and take a step back and say, why am I feeling this way? Or why did I say that? That speaks volumes to the content of your character and how you heal. So I kind of like, when I saw that post, when I first linked up with you to have you on the podcast, I looked at your Instagram. I'm like, oh, crap, this woman says some very outlandish things. But as we have this conversation, keep doing what you're doing, because I think we need to not provoke people, but people have to think different. I always attribute, like, The Matrix is such an awesome movie. We're so plugged in to this fake society, and then when we awaken and we become something bigger and better and we're out of the Matrix, everyone thinks we're crazy. We're not crazy. We just decided that society wasn't going to rule our lives and make us brainwashed into watching Netflix 20 hours a day and watching that romance movie that makes you think you're going to have a unrealistic partner. We just awakened. So what are you doing now to continue healing, and what are you doing as far as trying to help people?
I definitely see my therapist every week. Every time I see her, I'm like, hey, you get me. Because, I've been seeing her for like 6 years, and I do tell her, like, hey, I shared this post. I want to make sure I don't look like I'm trauma dumping or whatnot. And so I do make sure I do those measures. The thing is, yes, I am saying things where people are like, what? You're welcome. I just brought you to consciousness. You were on autopilot. That's what I just did. And when people are on autopilot, it's like everything's all good till somebody says something. Zap! Welcome to reality. How you doing? And people are like, why'd you just bring me into reality? Like, I don't want to be here. And the thing is, I'm using particular words that you can't easily go back into autopilot.
So it's more like a conversational mindset reset, right?
Yes, it is conversation. Because when I say tame, that's something you walk around, start talking to people about. Yeah, she said tame. Like, why did she? Now, conversation is happening. Because you are going to ascend whether you like it or not. That's the point behind my videos. I'm invoking thought, and I use different categories to make them think. Why did she say that? Some people are just, you shouldn't have said that. But I don't care what you think. It has now been in put into your brain. It is a natural response for your brain to keep on bringing it to the surface to understand what that meant, because I know how the brain works and you don't, is what I'm thinking to myself when people are going off. Now you have some new information that is not surface and is not really said out loud. Granted, when people do comment, I'll further elaborate. I made a post that I said, when I say black, I say that because it's a natural reaction for me to identify my shell. So I'll say black men, but I'll say other races. And people were like, well, you aren't asking other races, whatever. So I put, why are you teaching your children to become a husband to their mother? Boy, that video is still going. And people were like, how dare you say that? And there was this one commenter that said, I didn't realize how many dysfunctional houses there is. He was like, no, the child should not be taught to protect the parent. And that was my natural upbringing. I mean, people hear that all the time. Make sure you take care of the house when I'm gone. Make sure that's what you, and we don't think about, that's a lot of pressure you're putting on a child. My son actually brought that to the surface with me. He was like, Mom, that's a lot of pressure. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. I instantly rewired what I was saying. Some people say, I don't want to hear that because when I was a kid, oh my God, it's the biggest thing. I don't want to hear that because when I was a kid, sounds like somebody has not dealt with their childhood emotion. If you keep telling me about when you were a kid, you just had your child say, hey, that's a lot. It's to invoke thought, to help you feel like why it was a lot for me as a child. So thank you for saying, like, hey, you do say a lot of controversial stuff on your Instagram, because I'll do podcasts and they're like, do you want to add your Instagram? And I'm like, they might get offended because they don't really understand the point in my videos. And I wouldn't tell somebody, hey, post my Instagram, because maybe they didn't look at it and it could hurt their audience, where they're like, why would you bring somebody like that on your show? So I usually don't say, hey, tag my Instagram, because it is very thoughtful.
I will be tagging. So first of all,
Okay.
before I ask you the final question, I want to thank you for who you are. I want to thank you for how authentic you are. I think we need more disruptors in society, and I think you're a disruptor for good. And that's what it's about. It's disrupting the common thought process of we have to live one way and do things one way and act a certain way, especially with being different races. I think it just, once again, it's so crazy to me how we're in 2025 and there's still racism and there's still, it's so insane. So thank you for being a disruptor. And, if I didn't feel comfortable with your post or I didn't want to talk about it, then I wouldn't have invited you to be on the podcast. But I think, one, as a black female, as someone who's trying to help people and have a different theory on everything from race and mindset, these stories have to be told, because whether it's a white person, black person, whoever, if they come to my page and they resonate with this story, I would love nothing more to reach out to you. And if I'm not, I'll make sure I'm following you on Instagram. So with the Instagram and everything else, where can people find you? And then I'll ask the last question before we end the show.
I would definitely like people to find me on Amazon or Audible and grab my book called Am I Thinking Correctly? And in that book, it's a memoir of my life. It's actually not a thick book, 156 pages, maybe 190. And I share my experience in a real authentic manner, because I don't want to seem like everything was nice. It wasn't. But mostly the point of the book is to give context. Like, I'll say a story and I'll say, here is context. This is what I was thinking on a biochemistry level, a psychological level, a spiritual level. And it's to help them turn that mirror towards them and to look within, because it's very easy to go around, it's this category, it's that category. How is that helping your life? You are confining yourself to getting your connection. And a lot of people, they don't even know what the matrix is, because I'll talk to somebody and say, yeah, I broke out of the matrix. And I'm like, I don't know if that's what I'm really seeing here. Like, you broke out of that category. Now you're in another category. Like, so I started saying ascending, because I have people walk up to me like I'm awoken, and I'm like, I don't know what that really means to you. But yeah, look for me on Audible, and take a look at the manual and read the book, and I don't feel like you have nothing to lose. Everything's been torn down. What do you have left to believe in other than yourself?
I like that. And so, guys, when this releases, all her links will be in the description, and even the link to the Amazon book. Check that out. Like, here we are, two different people, two different sexes, two different races, but we can both be on the same wavelength. We can both speak about the same things. I can speak to her in a way where she can tell me her thoughts and theories, and I can understand what she's saying. Like, there's no reason to stay within your own community or culture. Everybody has value. Everybody has purpose. Everybody has a desire to be loved. So break down those walls. Check out her book. It may help you heal. And before we end the show, I always ask my guests this: what is your definition of turning pain into progress?
Understanding it on an in-depth level.
I like that. And I love everybody gives me a different answer, but it's actually the same answer. And it's essentially lean into the darkness and fight like hell to get out of it. So, Yasmina, thank you so much. I can't wait till this episode releases. I think this is going to be a good, thought-provoking conversation. I appreciate you being here. And, guys, like, comment, to subscribe. We just hit 1.16 thousand followers, so just over 1,000 followers. Thank you for that. Thank you for the comments. Keep commenting on these videos because it brings value not only to me, but to my guests that I feature. And as I always like to say, always be fit for battle. Thank you.
You've just heard another battle-tested conversation. Now it's time to take action. If this episode lit a fire in you, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or YouTube so you never miss a moment that could change your life. Want to go deeper? Connect with Coach Rob at Battlefitted Brand. For coaching, gear, and tools to help you turn your pain into progress. Remember, life will test you, but you're built to battle harder. Until next time, stay locked in, stay ready, and keep showing up.